the unit 2 on wealth management, and we continue with our discussions around the investment instruments now. We've already looked at what kind of savings instruments are typically available in India. We now move on to the investment instruments, right? So first let's understand what is the requirement of investing money. What is the requirement of growing capital? What happens if we do not grow capital? Right, so we'll look at various investment instruments. We'll start with equities, then we're going to look at debt, followed by real estate, and then commodities. And then we'll briefly touch upon the alternatives that are available as well. Right. Now, when we look at investment instruments, why is it important for looking at investment instruments is why savings may not be sufficient for us. Right. Assume that your yearly income is more than 10 lakhs and you will fall under the 30% tax bracket. Right. In India, if you look at the tax slabs, and we're going to look at that in more detail towards one of the later sections, but primarily till 2.5 lakh rupees of income you do not pay any taxes. So till 0 to 2.5 there is no tax. Then 2.5 to 5 there is 10% tax. 5 to 10 there is 20% tax. Lakhs, this is what is lakhs. 5 to 10 lakhs income is 20% tax, and greater than 10 lakhs income there is a 30% tax. Right. So if your actual income is greater than 10 lakhs, then you will find that your returns, which are being quoted by a lot of these instruments, let's say you get a return of close to about 8 to 9%. So on an FD you will get a return of about 9%. Now remember, FD interest is taxable, so the return on FD is actually taxable. So what would your final return be? Because on this 9% you would end up paying a tax of 30%, so your return would be only 70% of that, correct? So if I invest 1000 rupees, I end up making 1090, but on this 90 I will pay 30% tax. So what is left is 1063. That's 6.3% return, correct? Now this is the nominal return. This is the money I get in money terms essentially. So 1000 becomes 1063. But if inflation has gone up by 5%, then what I could purchase last year for 1000, today I need 1050 for the same thing. So what is my net return? My net return is only 13 rupees, right? That's 1.3%. Why? Because I had 1000 that got converted to 1063, but what I purchased using 1000, I now need 1050 for that. So what is left with me? That is 13, right? So these savings instruments, and this is when we have assumed that the FD rate to be 9%. In an environment where government is cutting rates on most instruments in India, fixed deposit rates have gone to 7-8%. In which case a lot of the saving guys would effectively not make any money if inflation hovers around 5%, which is generally the case in India. So it is absolutely important to look at beating inflation with a good margin. That's an absolute necessity that has come up now, right? So what is going to be required is capital appreciation. And for capital appreciation, we will have to look at instruments which are investment instruments and not necessarily savings instruments, correct? So on a post-tax basis, we would like to build our capital so that it can take care of adverse shocks in inflation, for example, right? So the first concept we try and understand in this is what is called as the equity. Now what is equity? Equity essentially means ownership. What do we mean by ownership? Let's assume there was a company which was here and they had the entire pie of ownership with themselves. At some point of time, they took out about 20% of their ownership and gave it to other investors, right? They did this by issuing shares to other investors. So in a way, there is a transfer of ownership happening from company to other investors And the company does this because the company raises money doing this, right? Now, what this allows is it allows an ownership into a company or a business, right? And what